You opened your electric bill last month, and for a second, just a second, you thought the number was a typo. You blinked, you looked again. It wasn't a typo. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a quiet little alarm went off. Not a loud one, not the kind that makes you call someone, just the kind that makes you stare at the ceiling at 2 a.m., wondering if you're falling behind. If that's you right now, stay with me, because what's happening to your energy bill in 2026 is not random, it's not temporary, and it is absolutely not your fault. But here's the thing, if you don't understand why it's happening, you will absolutely be unprepared for what comes next. My name is Smith, and I spend way too much time thinking about where your money is quietly disappearing every single month. If you're someone who feels like you're doing everything right financially, but still somehow ending up with less at the end of the month than you expected, hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up, because today we are talking about the 2026 energy shock, what's driving it, why it's going to get worse before it gets better, and the exact moves you need to make right now before your budget takes a hit you can't recover from. Let's start with the number that should wake every single one of you up. The U.S. Energy Information Administration puts the national average residential electricity price in 2026 at 18 cents per kilowatt hour. That's up approximately 37% from 2020. 37% in 6 years. And here's what makes that number genuinely alarming. That's the national average. Depending on where you live, it gets a lot uglier. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Smith, 37% over 6 years, that's like 6% a year. That doesn't sound catastrophic. And that's exactly the kind of thinking that gets people in financial trouble, because you're not comparing your bill to 2020. You're comparing it to your paycheck right now. And right now, since 2020, electricity rates have climbed 36%, making electricity one of the fastest growing household expenses in America. Meanwhile, wages for most middle-income households have not kept pace, so the gap between what energy costs and what you actually earn is widening every single year. That is the problem. Here's what most people don't realize. This isn't just about flipping a switch and the lights costing more. Your energy bill is a tax, a hidden, compounding, invisible tax on everything you own, everything you run, and increasingly, everything you depend on. Your refrigerator, your air conditioner, your phone charger, your EV if you have one, your home office setup. The bill for all of it is going up. And unlike income tax, nobody sent you a notice. Nobody asked for your vote. It just showed up, and it is going to keep showing up. So let's talk about why, because this is where it gets interesting, and this is where most financial content completely drops the ball. They'll tell you energy prices are going up, full stop. They won't tell you the 3 completely separate forces that are all converging on your bill at the exact same time. Think of it like this. Imagine your finances are a boat. 1 wave you can handle, 2 waves you're rocking, 3 waves hitting simultaneously from different directions. That's when people go overboard. That's exactly what's happening with energy right now. Force number 1, the AI and data center explosion. Now look, I love technology as much as the next person, but here's the brutal financial reality of artificial intelligence that nobody in the tech world wants to talk about. It is absolutely devouring electricity. The most significant driver of electricity load growth heading into 2026 is the rapid nationwide expansion of AI-driven computing and hyperscale data centers. And this isn't some abstract corporate problem. The EIA expects electricity sales to commercial customers in the West-South Central region, that's Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Arkansas, to rise by 17% in 2026 alone, accounting for 61% of the expected nationwide growth in electricity sales. 61% of all the new electricity demand in America coming from one region, because that's where the data centers are being built. Every time you use ChatGPT, every time a server processes a transaction, every time a streaming platform loads your show in 4K, a data center somewhere is pulling electricity off the same grid you're on. And because that demand is growing faster than new supply can be built, guess what happens to prices? They go up for everyone, including you. Force number 2, natural gas. Now here's the thing about electricity that most people don't understand. Most Americans think electricity is electricity. It comes from the wall, who cares where it comes from? But roughly 40% of America's electricity is generated by burning natural gas. So when natural gas prices go up, electricity prices go up, period. That is an iron law of energy economics. And right now, natural gas prices are forecast to rise to an average of nearly $4 per million BTU in 2026, primarily due to increased LNG exports amid flat production growth. Here's the part that'll sting a little. America is exporting more natural gas to Europe and Asia than ever before because they pay more for it, which means our domestic supply gets tighter, which means the price at home goes higher. LNG exports are forecast to be up 50% by 2027 compared to 2024, and in 2025, exports were already the fastest growing use of natural gas in the country, comprising 14.1%, more than the residential or commercial sectors. So the gas that used to heat your home and power your grid is now a global commodity being bid on internationally. You are competing with buyers in Germany and Japan for American natural gas, and you don't even know it. Force number 3, the grid itself is falling apart. This one is the slowest moving of the three, but in some ways, it's the most expensive. Much of the U.S. grid infrastructure, both transmission lines and generating plants, is aging, and utilities are undertaking multi-billion-dollar transmission and distribution upgrades to meet growth and reliability needs. And here's the uncomfortable financial truth about who pays for those upgrades. You do. It shows up in your bill as delivery charges or infrastructure fees, or whatever bureaucratic language your utility company decides to use that week. These capital investments are increasingly showing up on commercial and industrial bills as higher delivery charges and other cost recovery mechanisms, and you have zero power to negotiate it. You can't call your grid operator and say, "Actually, I'd prefer not to fund the transmission line upgrade." You just pay it. Now let's run some actual math, because I think when you see the dollar amounts, the abstract percentages stop feeling abstract. The average American household uses about 900 kilowatt hours of electricity a month. At the current national average of around 16 to 17 cents per kilowatt hour, that's roughly $144 to $153 a month. Now, if we apply even the conservative end of the EIA's projected increase, say 13% by end of 2026, that same 900 kilowatt hours costs you $170 a month. The aggressive end of the forecast at 18%, that's $180 a month. That's a difference of $27 to $36 a month just on electricity. Call it $360 to $430 a year. In 1 year, for doing absolutely nothing differently, not buying a bigger house, not leaving more lights on, not getting an EV, just existing the same way you did last year. Now you might be thinking, Smith, $360 a year, I can handle that. And maybe you can, but here's the psychological trap that catches even smart, financially aware people. We don't feel annual costs. We feel monthly costs, and we feel them through a process called adaptation. You get a bill that's $30 higher than last year, and within 2 months, it just becomes your new normal. You stop noticing it. Your budget quietly absorbs it. You don't consciously cut something else. You just have slightly less breathing room, and you never quite figure out where it went. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation. I call it the silent budget leak, because $360 a year sounds manageable, but $360 a year on electricity, plus $240 on car insurance, plus $480 on groceries, plus the slow creep of every other household expense, that's how middle-income families end up $1,200 to $2,000 poorer year over year while feeling like nothing changed. And this is exactly why electricity affordability has long been a problem for the poorest Americans, but now middle-income families are starting to feel the squeeze. Here's the thing that makes this particularly brutal for certain parts of the country. If you live in Texas, and I know a lot of you do, buckle up. The EIA forecasts that wholesale electricity at the ERCOT North pricing hub, that's the dominant Texas market, will increase 45% in 2026, after already rising 21% in 2025. 45% in a single year. That is not a rounding error. That is not a footnote. That is a fundamental repricing of the energy you depend on, driven by the fact that Texas became the epicenter of the data center boom, and the grid was not ready for it.
The combination of higher baseload, regionally concentrated growth, and long lead times for new generation increases the risk of higher prices and more volatile system conditions. Which means in Texas right now, you're not just paying more, you're living with the financial equivalent of price volatility that used to be reserved for commodity traders on Wall Street. Your electric bill in July might look completely different from your electric bill in March, and you can't budget around it because you can't predict it. This is where it gets psychologically interesting. Most people respond to rising costs in one of two ways. The first group, call them the ostriches, sticks their head in the sand. They pay whatever bill shows up, make a vague mental note that energy is getting expensive, and never take any concrete action. The second group, call them the reactors, panics, calls their utility company, gets frustrated, maybe posts something angry online, and then also takes no concrete action. Neither group actually improves their financial position. The third group, the group I want you to be in, understands the structural forces at play, makes a plan before the pressure hits, and positions themselves to absorb the shock or actively reduce it. That third group is a minority. Right now, watching this video, you have the chance to join them. So what does being in that third group actually look like? Let's get actionable. The first move, and I cannot stress this enough, is to do an energy audit on your actual home right now, today, this week. Not in theory. Actually open your last 3 electric bills and calculate your average monthly kilowatt-hour usage. Most utility websites have this data in your account dashboard. Figure out what you're using and where, because the magic of an energy audit is that it converts a vague, uncomfortable feeling, my bills are high, into a specific, solvable problem, and specific problems have solutions. Vague feelings just create anxiety. When you do that audit, here's what you're going to find. In the average American home, roughly 47% of energy costs come from heating and cooling. About 14% comes from water heating. Lighting accounts for around 12%. Everything else, appliances, electronics, the stuff we obsess about, is the remaining portion. What that means practically is that HVAC optimization is your single highest leverage intervention. If you don't have a programmable or smart thermostat, that is the $100 to $200 investment that will pay itself back within 6 months at current rates, and faster as rates rise. Set it to back off when you're asleep. Set it to ease up when you're at work. That one behavioral change, or rather, that one automated behavioral change so you don't have to remember to do it, can cut your heating and cooling bill by 10 to 15%. At today's averages, that's $20 to $30 a month. At 2027 rates, it's more. The second move is to aggressively audit your rate plan. Now look, this is one where most people lose money out of pure inertia. Many utility companies, particularly in deregulated markets, offer time of use pricing. That means electricity costs more during peak hours, typically 4 to 9 p.m. on weekdays, and less during off-peak hours. If your lifestyle allows you to shift energy-intensive tasks, running your dishwasher, doing laundry, charging your EV to late night or early morning, you can reduce your effective per kilowatt-hour rate significantly without using a single watt less. This is not a sacrifice. This is arbitrage. You are buying the same product at a lower price because you understand how the pricing system works and most people don't. The third move is the one people resist the most, and it's the one I'd push hardest on right now. It's hedging. Not in the stock market sense, but in the energy sense. Every dollar you invest in reducing your home's baseline energy consumption is now a dollar permanently insulated from future rate increases. When your energy bill goes up 18%, you want as little of it exposed as possible. LED lighting across your whole house. If you haven't done it, do it. It's a sub-$100 investment for most homes, and it reduces lighting consumption by up to 75%. Sealing air leaks around windows, doors, attic hatches. A $50 to $200 weekend project that can cut heating and cooling losses by 10 to 20%. Adding insulation to your attic, this is a bigger investment, maybe $1,500 to $3,000. But in terms of long-term dollar protection against rising energy rates, nothing comes close to its return profile. You are literally shrinking the surface area of your budget that future rate hikes can attack. The fourth move is to understand the political dimension of this problem, because it will affect how long you need to prepare for. With a new administration in Washington, U.S. energy policy is shifting towards increased domestic production, reduced regulatory pressure on traditional fuels, and a renewed focus on energy independence. The promise was lower energy prices. The reality is more complicated. All signs now point in the opposite direction, including trends that predate the current geopolitical disruptions. Global oil prices have soared to their highest level since 2022 as a result of disruptions to shipments through the Strait of Hormuz, through which about 20% of global oil and natural gas passes. And there's an expert perspective on this worth taking seriously. One former chair of the Colorado Public Utilities Commission said simply, "The cake is baked. I don't see hidden costs that can be suddenly squeezed out of the system." You were talking about an industry where most of the costs are fixed and the assets are long-lived. What that means for you is this: don't wait for a political solution to an infrastructure problem. The grid is what it is, the demand is what it is, rates are going where they're going. Your job is to be ready. Here's the final thing I want to leave you with, and this is the part where I get a little blunt. There is a reason why financial stress is the #1 cause of relationship conflict, the #1 distraction at work, and the #1 source of sleepless nights for adults in this country. And it's not because people are irresponsible. It's because modern financial life is designed to be opaque. Your electric bill doesn't show up with an explanation. It shows up as a number. And if that number feels wrong, but you can't explain why, your brain files it under "things I'm vaguely worried about" and moves on. That file gets heavy over time. It compounds. It weighs on decisions you don't even realize it's affecting. What I'm asking you to do today is completely different. Open the file, understand the forces, run the math, make the 3 or 4 concrete moves that will meaningfully reduce your exposure over the next 12 to 24 months. Not because you're in crisis, maybe you're not, but because the households that thrive financially over the next decade won't be the ones that earned the most. They'll be the ones that plugged the leaks the fastest, the ones who saw the wave coming and adjusted their sail while everyone else was still looking at their phone. You now know what's driving this. You know the math. You know the moves. The only question left is whether you act on it. And I think you will. Because the fact that you're still watching means you're already in the third group, the ones who do something about it. I'll see you in the next one.